Good afternoon, y'all. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope I've got this lighting thing whipped. It suddenly struck me this morning that the reason this big 10-inch ring light wasn't doing anything was because I had all of that light back there behind me and it just couldn't compete. So I'm experimenting today. I shut off four of the lights behind me. I've got the two overhead and I've got this big ring light. So maybe now it looks a little bit better. We'll find out as the day trundles merrily on. So, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to throw them in the chat over there and we'll see what we can do about it. But as it sits right now, my week has been, oh boy, a combination of many things. It's been raining, typical Southern Oregon weather. We're dancing between raindrops here, and we're supposed to have 4 or 5 days of decent weather so I can get some outdoor work done. But in here, it's been all dust collection and all trying to get certain things put away. I got me a locker over here that I'm putting all my finishes in and chemicals and thinners and what have you, all that other flammable stuff. Um, so that's all done, finished, and bolted up against the wall. It's not going to come tumbling towards me or anything like that. And you can see right back there, I'm getting my dust collection together. A lot of time has been spent waiting on parts. Um, I've got, again, I'm going with the 2 horsepower Harbor Freight dust collector with the 4-inch system. And let me give you guys a little bit of a pointer. If you do decide to go with that dust collector, that particular dust collection, do know that the inlet for it is 5-inch hose, not 4-inch. And of course, nobody here local to me carries any 5-inch hose. So I had to order a small short segment from good old McMaster Car and pay for shipping and everything. But they were the only people that I found that sold 5-inch hose by the foot. So, you know, what can I say? And actually, I'm going to give a decent, we always complain about when things don't go right. I'm going to give a shout out. And, I'm not so full of myself. I can't admit when things are right. Shout out to McMaster Car and to UPS of all people. I mean, I ordered it Thursday and McMaster Car said it would be delivered on Monday. I got it Saturday. So I'm more than happy with that. I mean, they nailed it. UPS is kind of iffy. It's 50-50. If they're going to ship it through Portland, Oregon, it could go in any direction. But if they send it through Sacramento, bang, it's perfect. And that's what it was this time. So I got everything 2 days early and I'm a happy guy. All right, let's see. I've got no questions over here. Man, y'all must be doing some perfect stuff here. Let's see. John over at Wood If I Could up in the northern contingent in Canada says lighting looks better. Try angling it more. Angling what? The light or the camera or which? If you look at my glasses, I have it set to where I'm not getting a big reflection, but if I look up just slightly, you can see it. So it is angled downward, but if I need more downward angle, I'll do that. I do need to angle the camera down. It looks like my chin is hiding behind your question there. Let's see. Here we go. All right, we got some. Let's see here. I will put those, give them a star so I can come back to them. And Mario Montoya, I saw you mention earlier that you're in Livermore, California. I grew up in Fremont, across the mountains from you, and had cousins that lived in Livermore. And we occasionally go to a big event, the Highland Games in Pleasanton. But that's not what you asked about. When you have multiple sheets in V-carve Pro, is it possible to arrange them differently from where they are placed when created? Yes. And I will show you that now. So let's go ahead and go into Aspire and wait for it to come up on me. There we go. Wait a minute. That's not right. There we go. That's right. And over here in Aspire, we'll come back over into sheets. Now, I don't have any, I've only got one sheet on this. So we'll add a new one. We'll just call it sheet 2, and that's good enough for me. And what that's going to do is put 2 sheets out here. Now, I've got sheet 1 over here and sheet 2 over there. If I move a sheet, drag it up the list, drag it. We're going to do that, are we? All right, let's go ahead and add a few more. Make another one and make another one. There we go. So I've got 4 sheets here. You can select a sheet. Well, it's not going to let me do it now. Okay. I'm going to have to get back into this and figure it out, because there is a way to move the sheets around so that they're in a different order. I'm trying to remember how to do that. You can list them by name. You know, there's a little arrow right here by name. There is a way to move it. And I'm going to have to get back to you on this because I can't remember it off the top of my head. But there is a way to move it. Oh, boy. I hate when this happens, because I hate it when I can't remember. I'll get back to you on it, Mario. But yes, there is a way to move them around. And I will get it. Let's see here. What was the next question? Next question is, okay, Peter Van Vliet wants to know, what motor and spindle do you use on your CNC, and did you make your own mount? Okay, the router that I'm using right now is a Porter Cable 890 series motor. And I believe this is the 892. They made an 893 and an 894, 95. But it turns out all of those different last digits were basically down to which mount package came with it. Was it the plunge base or the fixed base or a combination kit with both? The motor is identical. And it is a 2.25 horsepower, which is fine. It's more than perfect for what I do. That is right on par with the 2.2 kilowatt spindle. It's right on par. It is, because it's a router, it is variable speed, but it is manual variable speed. I'm not real happy with that. Because I've got no way of increasing it via the software. So there is that. And with a router, it is air cooled, so it's blowing dust all over the place. And let's face it, routers are just noisy. They're just loud. A spindle has a lot more torque to it. A a 2.2 kilowatt spindle will handle a lot more than a 2.25 horsepower router. So yeah, I can cut deeper per pass. I could cut possibly faster, but a spindle is actually the way to go. With a router, you're also dealing with brushes that are going to need to be replaced, occasionally bearings that are going to need to be replaced. So ultimately, the goal for me is to upgrade to an air-cooled spindle. I just haven't pulled the trigger on that yet, simply because the money has needed to go for other priorities. Get this built, and then dust collection now, and various other things to kind of improve the quality of the videos and improve the quality of the live streams here, and to, let's face it, buy the materials. Just for instance, the resin and all the pigments for the pirate that I'm eventually going to do here. No movement on that yet. That was $200 in and of itself. So the money for the spindle has just been spent on other things. So, but it'll come. It'll get here. As far as the mount is what came with the Gatton CNC. And so that was a part of the kit. So I did make one little modification. Jury's still out on whether or not I'm ever going to release plans for that, simply because I'm not 100% certain it's a better way to go. And I may just revert back to the standard mount that came with the Gatton CNC. So I hope that answers that. I know that was probably more than you wanted to know. So we'll see. Now, RB Woodwork says the only way I've been able to move them is to rename them. And that's an excellent point. Let me go back to screen sharing here. And let it catch up. Come on, there you are. All right. If we rename this, let's rename this to back and enter it. That was how it was named. It changed everything around, and it puts them in alphabetical order. So let's do an experiment right now with all of them. And let's go with, let's say I want to cut this one first. I'll right click, click rename, and over here in front of the word sheet, I'll put a 1 space hyphen space, as I like to do. And that's going to run. Okay, sheet 1 is now down here. Let's go with this one. And I'm not sure this is going to work. As I said, I'm just trying it. 2 space hyphen space, enter. And okay, I got one sheet 2 now is up here. Number 2 back is down here. Sheet 4, let's make that number 3 on my list. Rename. I'm just trying to see if numerical order counts for anything. And then we'll come down here, and the reason it's highlighted is that's the active sheet. So we'll rename and go 4, enter. And okay, so now I have them in that numerical order. So numerical does work: 1, 2, 3, and 4. So there we go. Thank you, RB. That's exactly, there's your answer. Yeah. So, okay. And then if I want to make that one, sheet 1, active, I just double click on it, and then that becomes the active sheet. So that would be the way to arrange the layers, or excuse me, rearrange the sheets, is to rename them. So that works. All right, let's see here. We have another question from Hugh. Is in drawing mode, how can you alter the grid, color, and or spacing? Okay. That's actually up here. Let's go back over to screen sharing again. Let that catch up. And while it's catching up, I'll do there we go. Go back into my drawing tab, come up here to edit, go down to snap options, not options, but snap options. And click on that. And right down here is your snap to grid. Now I have it turned off, so I don't have the grid dots out here. You can click on snap to grid and it sets up, it highlights, or it activates the grid spacing. This is where you can adjust the spacing of the dots out here on the grid. If you want to make them, let's say right now they're at a 1/4 inch, let's make them 1/8 of an inch, and we click OK, and it'll take it a second, it'll catch up, and now that should be 1/8 of an inch. Let's go down to snap options again. Yes, grid spacing is 1/8 of an inch. So if I were to come along and let's just draw a rectangle from that spot there to the next row, close, and my grid, let's measure, get in here and measure from, there's another row here and another row there. So I took 1, 2, 3/8 of an inch. Let's measure from here. No, up here, measure between 2 points. There you go, Mark. Measure from there to there, and it is 3/8 of an inch. So you may or may not have to zoom in to see these. If I zoom way out, you see how the grid is further and further apart. You have to zoom in, and that grid will follow that distance. It is proportional. So that's how you can change the spacing. As far as changing the color, I don't believe there is a way to change the color. Let me go back in here and take a look, and we'll find out. Let's see. I'm going to turn off the snap to grid, and I don't see any way of changing that color. But that doesn't mean that there isn't one. Let me go back into options, standard options, and we'll find out here. Somebody asked me the other day how to change my tab location from the side to the bottom. That's right here, tab location. You click in here, that's a drop-down menu, and you can go from the left to the bottom or the bottom to the left, whichever. So let's see here. 3D view settings, toolpath settings. I'm not seeing any way of changing the color of that grid. But if you get in here and you look around, you would be amazed at the number of things you can change. No, I'm not seeing any way of changing the color of the grid. So I hope that answers that. You get into snap settings, snap options, and you can change the grid that way. So, okay, let's see. Il Peleg wants to know, what other major tools do you have in your shop in addition to the CNC? For example, air compressor, jointer, planer, different saws, any other equipment you consider to be a must? If I were to nail it down to any one thing, I would be lost without my table saw. And in fact, I was for about 8 years. I have my table saw over here. Now I do have a small benchtop jointer. I do have a small Delta lunchbox planer. And I have a compressor, but those currently aren't set here. They're in my other shed. I have a 6x12 shed that is used basically for tool storage. And I take them out and set them up on sawhorses or small assembly tables, and I run them outside. That's not going to change. I simply don't have the room in here to store them. In fact, in that cabinet that I have all my paints and glues and finishes, down the very bottom of that cabinet is where my oscillating spindle sander lives. And that's just simply to get it out of the way, and so it's not taking up floor space. You can't see it. Why would you? But my miter saw is sitting at my feet. And that's simply because I haven't got storage for it built yet. That's coming. As far as major tools are concerned, if you can measure accurately, cut accurately, and drill accurately, you've got it covered. The CNC can do a lot of that, but it's also overkill for a lot of that. Forgot to mention my drill press is also set up in that other shed. So, and that's where it's going to stay. I just run an extension cord out, do whatever drilling I need to do, unplug it, close the door, and bring the cord back in. It would be nice to have a 30-foot by 50-foot shop, but on my lot, I just don't have the space for it. But as far as tools that are absolutely a must, again, I would be lost without my table saw because I use it on just about every project I make. And from there, the rest are luxuries. Now, I know other folks who would be lost without their bandsaw. And I do hope to set up a bandsaw, but it's going to be down the road. And that's simply because I have other priorities right now. Yeah, and I'm another must have I'm discovering quickly is the dust collector. Now, you notice the dust collector is going to go back in that corner of the shop. I'm old school. I came up through working in carpentry into cabinet shops and furniture shops, etc. And dust collection was only used on tools that absolutely had to have it. And that was more or less limited to like wide belt sanders and drum sanders, things like that. I mean, we ran the planer just out on the shop floor when we needed to run it, and then spent a half hour sweeping up and cleaning up after it. There was no consideration given to any of that. And that's just the way it was done. Dust collection was used on those sanders because if you didn't extract that dust as it was being created, it would jam up and start burning material and just make an absolute mess. Waste was handled by hand. I mean, we didn't have the huge extraction system that would suck up a 4-inch long piece of scrap and run it through a grinder and then spit it out into a hopper. We didn't have anything like that. But the importance of dust collection has really come into play with the CNC router. And I guess I've kind of gotten spoiled in that once I hooked up the CNC router to the dust collector and saw how much cleaner everything was in here, I realized that I didn't have to live in a world of sanding dust as well. So I got some adapters and hooked them up to my random orbit sander, and the difference is night and day. So I have become a fan of dust collection. So if you can at all fit dust collection into your shop, I would consider that a must-have now. I considered it a luxury than something that, just don't worry about that. You're going to get dirty. It's woodwork. Well, yeah, you are still going to get dirty, but there's no sense in adding to it, you know? So, um, I would definitely look into dust collection. While we're on the topic of that, when I look at how much money I've spent on running a shop vac system, buying the vacuum and then the little cyclone for that, and then all the different hoses, and then you can still see the 2.5-inch PVC I have running up the back of the shop, and then the vinyl flex hose and everything else. Everything that I bought to make that 2.5-inch system work, I might have just as well gone ahead with the 4-inch system from the beginning. It is more expensive, but when you total everything up, it's not all that much. When you've got $250 to $350 invested in a shop vac based dust collection system, at that point you might as well just go ahead and go with a 4-inch. So if I had it to do over again, I wouldn't even have invested the money in the 2.5-inch system. Now, do I regret it? To a point, yes. But then again, that 2.5-inch system is perfect for the my sanders and for the table saw. It does a good job on those. So I am going to keep it for those. So I don't have to run this big kahuna every time I fire up a random orbit sander. But I don't know. I consider dust collection to be a must-have now. So let's see. Jim Brown says, try changing the background color. Let's give it a shot. Let's go back over here into Aspire. And I'll go ahead and go into my options window while that's catching up. There we go. And let's look in the background color is only for the 3D view settings. Let's see, window layout. And we have colors for the top slide rule and the bottom slide rule. That's these up here when you're working in a double-sided project. The top will be white and the bottom will be orange, which is set right here. Now in the 3D view, you can change the background color and the gradient color if you'd like. More on that later. Color shaded view, material block, and I'm not seeing a way. See 2D solid preview color. I don't think that's it. 200, 255. No, I don't think that's it. Toolpath tolerance. Yeah, no, I'm not seeing. I'm not seeing a background color for 2D. I think it's just white with the gray out here, and that's it. So, yeah, I'm not seeing a way to do that on the 2D view. There is on the 3D, but not the 2D view. So, oh boy, let's see here. All right, so let's see. Mike Belcher wants to know, running a 1/4-inch end mill, cutting an 18-inch circle at 80 inches per minute, 1/8-inch depth of cut. Okay. 30 plunge rate at 1600 RPMs. It has a high pitched squeal, and I was wondering if I need to speed it up or slow it down. I think you mean 16,000 RPMs, because 1600 RPMs is way too slow. If you've got a high pitched squeal, that is generally speaking chatter. That means you need to back off of either back off the inch per minute, your feed rate, or speed up your RPM, or reduce your depth of cut. Now, depth of cut, That's kind of dependent more or less on the rigidity of your machine. If your machine can handle that 1/8 depth of cut, then great. Um, the high pitch squeal generally is chatter, and I would either slow down the feed rate or up your RPMs, because it's that indicates your bit is struggling with the load it's taking. So, and again, I'm assuming you mean 16,000 RPMs, not 1,600 RPMs, because 16,000, now you're into drill press speeds. So, okay, let's see here. Matthew Upchurch says, a little late to the stream and to the CNC game. Welcome aboard. I have an X-carve SketchUp Easel Pro for good 3D relief. Looks like Aspire, Vectric Fusion are the options to create said files. Any decent, cheap alternates? Okay, now, depends on what type of 3D cutting you're going to be doing. If you're talking about relief carvings, like some of the artistic things you have seen, there are some free alternates out there. Like, let's see, Blender is one, and there is a cam feature that you can import into Blender. It's a plugin. I'm not sure about a price if that is a case. There are some other options out there. Carveco Maker is another option. Now, if you are talking about making parts for assemblies, like gears or brackets or whatever, if you're talking about making parts for assemblies, Fusion 360 is a good option, as well as one that most folks have not heard of. Dave, I'm going to beg you for help because I cannot think of it now right off the top of my head to save my life. My friend Dave Gatton has been doing some tutorial videos for a software I had never heard of. I have downloaded it and installed it. Something mechanical. Dave, help me. I'm floundering here. Oh my gosh. Design Spark Mechanical. Thank you. Design Spark Mechanical. I could not think of Design Spark to save my life. From what I've seen from Dave's tutorials and from the projects he has put out with Design Spark, this looks like a real good free software. It looks very powerful. It looks to be very, very, I won't say easy to work with, but easy to learn, in that it looks intuitive. Tools and controls are where you would think they are. So you might look into it. Design Spark Mechanical. I will go find the website and put a link in this video when we're finished live here. Just wrote a note to myself to go do that. And I'll put a link to, I don't know if you've made a playlist yet, Dave, or not, but I will put at least a link to Dave Gatton's channel down in the description of this video. If he is, and I'll look, if he has created a playlist of his Design Spark tutorials, I'll put a link to that playlist instead. But I will say also, if you're not subscribed to Dave Gatton, you really should be. You're doing yourself a disservice. He is my CNC guru. And again, I'm going to say it again, I am his fault. He got me into this. He hosts a live session with guests, both Q&As or with focused features, Saturday nights at, and I'm going to get this wrong, I think 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on Saturday nights. It's a great time. I'm out there in the chat hooting and hollering with everybody else. Um, it's 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 really a good time. By all means, get over to Dave's channel and subscribe. And then I hope to see you in some of his live streams on Saturday nights. And he just confirmed it. Yes, he has a playlist of all the Design Spark mechanical tutorials. So I will put a link to his channel so you can subscribe. And I'll put a link to the playlist down in the description of this video as soon as we're finished here. Okay, yes, Matthew, had both types in mind, but mostly artistic in mind today. However, I also fab, so I'll also check out Design Spark for sure. Dave's videos. Thank you. You're welcome. If you are looking into the more artistic side of 3D, then you are going to be looking at higher end software like Aspire, because V-carve, while you can carve 3D, you cannot create 3D in V-carve. That's not what it's made for. You would look at Aspire. On the Carveco side, I believe it's Carveco Maker Plus. I may be wrong there. And again, there is Blender, which can be used. There is Rhino. Boy, there are a bunch of them. So kind of do your due diligence, look around. And my advice would be on the more artistic side of things, just about all of them have a free trial that you can download and you can check out for yourself. Excuse me. I would highly recommend you download the free trial, get into it and get into their tutorials and start working with it. And you will soon figure out which program you're most comfortable with and which one you like to use the most. And run with that one, kind of uninstall the other free trials and focus on that one, whatever it is. I happen to be a fan of Vectric. I don't work for Vectric. I'm not an employee. I know a lot of people think I am. I'm not. I'm a major fan of Vectric because while I'm not an expert with any software, I'm an expert at how to learn software or attempting to learn software. I've been doing this for a few years. And I have to say that the Vectric software titles have the most gentle learning curve of any program I've ever tried to learn. It too is very intuitive, and controls are where you would think they're going to be. They're not hidden behind 15 different layers of various menus. So I have a soft spot for Vectric software, and it does everything I need it to do and more. But with that bias aside, I know there are plenty of other alternatives out there. So, okay, let's see here. Yeah, you're talking about SketchUp, Matthew. I still use SketchUp. I drew out this entire shed build in SketchUp, but as far as for CAD and CAM, it leaves a lot to be desired. So I use it for planning, and I use it for making various little just 3D concept of various assemblies, what have you. I'm putting all my dust collection into SketchUp so I can get it figured out and kind of figure out dimensions and where I need to drill this hole and where I need to bolt that together and what have you. But it's it's not really it was never designed to be a CAD CAM software for CNC, and it has its limitations. Let's see. Keith Fleming says, hi from Ireland. Howdy, how you doing? What's your thought on the I2R machines? You're not going to want to hear this, but I've never heard of them. I don't know anything about the I2R machines. All I will say is if you are shopping for a CNC and you're just getting into it, Do your due diligence, but sit down and take an honest assessment of what you want to do with a CNC router, because the CNC that will do everything all at once doesn't really exist. There are pros and cons to everything. For instance, if you want to cut steel, you should be looking at a mill and not a router. Two different things entirely. If you want to run a plasma cutter, that has different criteria and has different challenges than cutting wood, foam, or plastics. That's not to say you can't do both on the same table, but if you've ever worked in a wood shop and a metal shop before, you know the two very rarely coexist peacefully. Um, it's hard to machine metal in a shop that is primarily a wood shop because you get cross contamination. So it's it's kind of a give and take. So sit down and figure out exactly what you want to do with the CNC router before you spend the first penny. Um, and then decide how big you actually need. Do you need something that will hold a full sheet of plywood? How often are you going to use that? If you are if you're thinking about going into a cabinet business and you're going to be cutting a whole bunch of cabinet parts, then you should not be looking at a home hobby CNC router because most of them can't handle production work. They're not designed for it. You should be looking on the more industrial side. Now, the pro level machines and industrial machines is what you should be looking at. And the pro level should be the gateway to the industrial. So, but only you can honestly answer how you plan on using the machine and then go for the best bang for the buck. I mean, it's real easy to look at belt drive versus lead screw versus ball screw versus rack and pinion. Um, it's kind of like building a hot rod. Speed costs money. How fast can you afford to go? Also, look at how much real estate you have to set it up. Take the cutting area that you're looking at and double that. That's about how much space you're going to need to be able to run a CNC router, just simply because you're going to have to be able to get to it from all four sides. You're going to have to be able to put material on it and take it off. It's going to have room to move. There's going to be associated equipment that goes with it, computer table, computer. Okay, maybe you have a laptop that helps shrink the footprint, but now you got to start thinking about dust collection and various other things that's going to go with it. So they take a lot of space, but only you can honestly answer what you're going to use it for. But do that before you spend the first cent, and then kind of let that be your guide. So let's see. Hugh wants to know, are you adding a larger filter to your dust collector? I went with the 2 horsepower. I am not adding a bigger filter right now. I'm basically, this is a temporary setup right here because I'm building a separate enclosed lean-to shed on the back of this later this year, and the dust collector will go out there. So this system that I'm setting up is temporary. And so when that lean-to gets built, it'll get moved outside, and I'm not going to concern myself with filtration out there. In fact, I'll probably just vent it outside. So I've got you can just barely kind of see right there. I've got an elbow sticking up, and I've got that little stub sticking up that is a dust deputy cyclone. And I just haven't got it set up. Next week, you'll see it set up. How loud is it? It's not very loud. Not very loud at all. It's nothing like a shop vac. Believe me, shop vac is much louder than this dust collector. So let's see here. Robert Bonham, greetings, neighbor in Medford. Hey, how you doing? I've met a couple of folks from the Rogue Valley here online. Picked up a white side bowl and tray bit, and I'm having trouble figuring out how to put it in V-carve. Basically, I will put a link to a video. You want to add a form tool. The way that works is, I don't know if Whiteside has all of their, I don't know if Whiteside has all of their bit profiles online. Okay, you know that it is a 1/4 inch radius and 3/4 cutting diameter. Draw a vector that represents the right half of that bit. Okay, it doesn't need to be a closed vector. And in fact, it's better if it is. In fact, it has to be an open vector. You want from the center line of that bit around that 1/4 inch radius and up to the top of its cutting height. Just one vector. Select that and then go into add a form tool. Now, personally, I put those in my form tool folder. But yes, form tool is the key. Now, go to Whiteside's website. They may have a tool file for the bit on their website, and then all you have to do is download that file, put it in the proper folder, and import it, and it loads up the bit for you. You don't have to go through all that stuff. If you know the Whiteside part number of that bit, go to Whiteside's website and see if there is a file for it, because they've already done the work for you. You will have to go in and change things like the feed rate, depth of cut, and some of the other criteria there, because their numbers in the software, that can't be blank. They have to put something in there. So it's basically engineered for an industrial machine. You'll probably have to reduce your cut depth, pass depth, your step over, and your feed rate, and all that other good stuff. They do have the file. Perfect. So you'll just import that, download and import that tool file, and you'll be good to go. So, all right. Well, what are we looking at here? We're looking at 53 minutes. Okay. Troy Pritchard says you can import SketchUp files into Design Spark. Good to know. I did not know that. So cool. That works. All righty. Let's see. I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier that I have not been able to get anything done on the Pirate yet. I'm doing some experimentation with the resin to make sure I know how to use it and to make sure that it works right. The weather hasn't been super cooperative, so there's been a delay on that score. But the next video in the Pirate series, I will actually be cutting and pouring, and that'll be done. The cutting will be done out here. The pouring will be done in the house, and I'll kind of do a synopsis of all of that. So next week's video, I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier. We're going to get into the options, and I'm going to show you how to customize the software a little bit by adding different backgrounds, show you some things that you may not know you could do with that. And I'll also get into adding new materials in the 3D view. A lot of people have asked me, is there a way to rotate these wood samples so instead of the grain going vertical, it's horizontal? Well, the short answer is no. The long answer is next week I'll show you how to do that. So that'll be the video for next Sunday, doing a little bit of customization to the 3D view and preview, adding new textures for the previews, and a few other little custom touches that I've not seen anybody else touch on except one time. And it was just in passing. And far too much of it is done that way. So let's see what else here. I'm not doing videos on the dust collection, mainly because I think that's too personal. And what I mean by that is what works for me probably doesn't work for you. And what I'm having to do here is a temporary step that's going to be, taken out a few months down the road when I get I'm looking at getting the lean-to built in August. We'll see. I'm hoping that's going to work. Andrew Haig dropped by. Howdy, Andrew. For those of you who don't know, Andrew is the gentleman who printed up all the pretty blue parts you see back there on the Gatton CNC. I'm using my cursor like you can see that. That little limit switch bumper there, the fancy blue motor standoffs, up there, the limit switch holders, and the dust shoe. Andrew printed up and sent to me. If you're building a Gatton CNC and you would like some of those fancy goods, head over to Thingiverse and look for Old English Workshop. I will link that. I just wrote a note to myself to link Andrew's Thingiverse page. He's got a lot of stuff over there that's very cool. And if you have a 3D printer and you want to make some cool stuff for your Gatton CNC, maybe some other stuff as well, hit him up. He does very good work and his designs are very awesome. So thank you, Andrew, very much for everything. I think we're going to go ahead and call it a good one here. I think I have everything that I wanted to mention. Yeah, I've got it all. So next week, again, customizing the software a little bit and adding materials to the material samples. And until then, y'all take care. Go do something cool. Get out in the shop. Or if you've been in the shop all weekend, sit down, relax. You've earned it. Have a good one, y'all. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for the super chats and super stickers. Thank you for the super thanks, which got added to the underneath the video panel. And more on channel membership next week, but channel memberships will start June 1st. And until then, have a good one. Y'all take care.